welcome back to Draft Nights. It's been an exciting couple of hours for us, especially for the U.S. national team, but we're going to be talking about real football right now. Sam, how you been?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad that you referred to it as real football as it should be known. I'm excited to dive right in.
Absolutely. And today, this is going to be a little bit less structured than we usually do. We're going to be talking about the things in the NFL and college football that we're not the biggest fans of and we like to see changed.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and kick things right off then with kickoffs. So, a couple years
Mmm.
ago, NFL changed kickoff format, and I gotta be honest, it killed the vibe of kickoffs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's safer or not, it probably is safer. That's true.
Yeah.
But that being said, the excitement of a kickoff now just in college football that was in both, just nothing beats that. Nothing beats watching Devin Hester go down the sideline for an 106-yard kick return to start off a half. There's something electric about it, and I feel like kickoffs have kind of lost that spark in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's going to be a big thing if they bring it back because there's just so much potential there for growth and for excitement and for a big play in football, which doesn't happen too often. A lot of times in football, you're watching 4, 5, 6 yard runs. If you bring back those big plays like a kick return for a touchdown, I think that could bring a lot more fans to the game.
Yeah, I'm not entirely against it. I do want to see how this new kickoff rule like exists for a couple more years. I want to because the immediate signs do say that they are much much safer, which like I'm obviously in support of. I think the
Right.
NFL should do everything it can to support player health. So I'm okay to like let it sit for a little bit. I actually disagree with you. I'm not the biggest hater of the new kickoffs. I thought I was gonna like them a lot less. I really felt like maybe we're looking a little too nostalgia view because like how many like kickoff returns for touchdowns were there really in the old format compared to now?
No, that's fair. I think what all of football has to do is come together and decide whether we're going to flip to this new system or go back to the old one. Because that
Hmm.
nostalgia is never going away if college football continues to have that old system. And,
That's a good point.
I'm with you in terms of trying keeping the players safe as much as possible. But people are always going to look and have that viewpoint of remember when if college and high school
Hmm.
football is continuing to do it. Furthermore, I think if we're doing it for player safety, it's that much more important in the
I
college and high
100% agree.
school.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
if they want to make that argument, I fully am in support of it, but do it everywhere. Don't just keep it in the NFL.
100%. That's the biggest point, especially at the youth level. I think that like when you get to the professional level, when you're making millions of dollars to play football, the obviously you still want to have less of an injury risk, but there's more stability and more safety built around it. At the high school and college level, you could take a bad head injury and then boom, your life could be completely altered and you don't have the financial like safety that the NFL players have. Moving on to one of my critiques, and this is maybe a bigger one. It's one that I'm personally really against. Is the prevalence of gambling and sports betting ads throughout the presentation of both college football and the NFL. I think it's ever since it got like legalized in 2018 and started to spread and get more legalized in other states, the amount of advertising that companies like DraftKings, like Underdog, and then now recently with the prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi has really like not ruined but really soured my view of the presentation of the NFL and college football.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Because I understand the excitement of betting on a game. I can see where fans enjoy it so much. But if it is something that can cause such big problems, like, gambling addictions are a big thing, players betting on games can become a really
Hmm.
big problem. Whenever you have something like that, it's difficult to balance allowing the public to do it with also ensuring that it's not overly done. And to your point exactly, I agree these companies have been completely overdoing the ads for gambling right now.
Yeah.
I think that it's one of those things that's going to increase something that maybe shouldn't be increased.
And just like for starters, I don't think that sports betting is inherently bad. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't personally do it, but I think that the amount of advertisement for it specifically and the ease of use, especially for younger viewers, is very frustrating. Like you'll notice on ESPN where in years past they had a presentation about like like what players are going to like go for like however many yards or whatever like they need to do to get in the MVP conversation. Now it's propping up betting lines for like what awards they might win. And that is like as a viewer much more frustrating. And then combined with now like sports betting and gambling is more accessible than ever. It's on your phone, it takes seconds. They give you free bets at the very beginning, they give you notifications. The prevalence of underage gambling and for like younger viewers to get gambling addictions, which are incredibly serious, like while the NFL and college football are promoting it, is very frustrating.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you're really hinting at that's important is this underage aspect. Obviously, for people who are 30, 40 plus years old, this is going to be less of a problem because they typically already have a routine down. You're not
Hmm.
really going to start getting into different addictions later in your life. But for people that are, teenage, 20s, even really young kids that are seeing this, seeing how easy it is, and seeing how much it's advertised by celebrities, by the
Exactly.
networks themselves. And like you said, betting odds are now in the stats, which doesn't make a ton of sense if you're
Yeah.
just trying to push the stats themselves. You don't need to know, the odds for somebody winning an MVP. You want to know what they have to do to win an MVP.
Exactly. And it's also being like, if you're a modern viewer that's starting out watching the NFL, like maybe you're a 6 year old or you're an 8 year old, whatever it is, and now until you get to your 20s, all the time that you're watching college football or the NFL, you get like betting lines. You're getting DraftKings, Kalshi, all this stuff like pushed in your face. It's gonna desensitize you. So by the time that you get to the age that you can legally be betting, you're going to immediately, without like the same temperance that maybe people who didn't grow up with the sports betting ads being a part of it. And I think that's really worrying. And I think that the money aspect of gambling is really blinding the NFL and college football to like actually the presentation of your product is getting worsened because of these gambling ads.
Yeah, and it's just getting changed really heavily. Whether worsened or bettered, I feel like is difficult to say just because it really is change and these addictions obviously are bad for people. And this is really changing their lives based on the way that the game is presented. I can understand how people get excitement out of
Hmm.
sports betting. I get it. It is fun. It does make a game a little bit more enjoyable to watch sometimes. But that being said, when it's being advertised so heavily and pushed toward you with celebrities and everyone else, it's really going to change your perspective of the game and it's going to change the way that you watch a game. You're no longer watching it
Hmm.
just for the sake of, having a good game. You're watching it to see if your bet hits. And it's almost like fantasy football in a way. Um, People used to watch football just to see how their teams would do. Now with fantasy,
Yeah.
you're watching your players. And fantasy is a little bit different in the sense that it's not really a plus or minus. You can play for free. Nothing needs to happen from it. But when you take that and you put money behind it, and then people can keep putting money behind it, that can lead to problems really quickly.
And yeah, I want to relay again. When it's done in moderation and when it's done just for fun and when it's done responsibly, sports betting can be really fun. It's really fun and to get like excited when you're watching a player, you're like, oh my God, just get 5 more yards, please, 5 more yards, and I get $50. That's fun. And there is an enjoyable aspect to it. And personally, I don't even think that sports betting should be 100% illegal. I have different views on like the prediction markets. I don't think those should really exist, to be honest. But I just think that it should not be allowed to be advertised by the NFL, by college football. Yeah, I think it really, really makes the overall product worse from a viewing perspective when you're constantly having gambling ads thrown in your face.
Yeah, no, I can fully get on board with that. Um, changing viewpoints just a little bit. I'm gonna step it
Mhm.
down to the NCAA level, where you
Okay.
are still seeing a lot of these betting odds, and one of those big ones is the playoff picture. There's a lot of money
Hmm.
spent every year on the playoff picture, and then there's a lot of conflict and confusion that typically happens after that. And so I would say my next gripe about college football is the playoff format. Now, right
Hmm.
now, they have that 12-team format, but that being said, there isn't really anything set in place about what teams make it and why they make it, which is how we get teams like James Madison in and Notre Dame out.
Hmm.
Whether you agree with that pick or not, you can't really deny that there was a lot of confusion that went into it, and it definitely caused a lot of controversy. So I
Hmm.
think that college football is going, in order to keep its validation and in order to kind of stay as a strong presence, they need to have a better format for the college football
I agree.
playoffs.
I think also combining with that, the fact that the committee exists, like this overall like board that decides the rankings of the teams based on all these different things, when they have sole custody over the rankings and who gets in the playoffs and who doesn't, it gives, in my opinion, too much of a bias towards the bigger teams. For example, let's not even go last year. Let's not even go the year before that. Let's go all the way back to 2004. Okay? I want to bring a little bit of history for this.
Take us
In
back there.
2004, before the last poll, the rankings in college football had my school, Cal, number 4 overall, and number 5 overall was Texas. We had the same record, and like I think it was the very last poll. We were there, and then Texas, who admittedly a bit of a bigger fish in the college football world. The coaches and the teams started arguing really heavily that they deserved to be in and that they should go to the Rose Bowl, that they needed to do it because they deserve all this stuff. And guess what happened? Very next week, the new poll comes out and we just swapped for no reason. No games had been played, nothing. It was just that Texas came out and argued for it, and we didn't get to go to the Rose Bowl. And that sort of attitude, maybe I'm a little bit biased in this story as a
A
Cal
little
fan,
bit.
but moving it down to nowadays, you see the same stuff happening. Just last year, Texas once again was arguing, despite the fact they only had 9 wins, that they deserved to be in. Like Notre Dame doing the same thing. These are teams that have so much of a presence in college football because of their following, because of the history behind it, and they weigh very heavily on the committee's mind. I thought it was very smart that Texas should not have been let in. I thought it was very smart that Notre Dame shouldn't have been let in. But as we see the playoff format grow, you're seeing teams that previously would never have a chance of getting into the college football playoffs, begging basically the committee to let them in for whatever reason.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you remember the days in the four-team system when it would be like one loss can just ruin your season. In
Exactly.
Florida State's case, zero losses ruined their season. So there's no question that there is a problem with this. The only solution that I can come up for, or that I can create for
Hmm.
this solution, is that right now there are 10 different conferences in in college football in the FCS, right?
Hmm.
And now if you take that, there's been a lot of talk over the past few years about creating just one super conference. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
money going into different teams to create different football and basketball programs that, or big revenue sports that allow you to go into that one super conference. I think that the
Hmm.
one super conference is a terrible idea. But
I
I'm
agree.
not against the concept of having fewer conferences because I think that allows you to look at it a little bit more like divisions where they have it in the NFL rather than just picking and choosing. And even this concept of the Power Four, yes, it's true, these teams are bigger and better. But that being said, that doesn't mean that you can't or that you should just take away all the respect of these other teams. So put them together and figure out which teams are truly the best. If you have fewer conferences, it's going to be easier to explain why you're taking each team rather than right now where it seems kind of arbitrary.
But I think my thought on that is like when you have teams like James Madison, you have teams like Tulane. They had their like the best possible season that they could have, and they got into let into the playoffs, and they lost. happens. If we create a system where it's like, okay, we want the college football playoffs the best possible, no James Madison, no Tulane, we're just doing like the Power Four, then what is the point for these lower level teams? Like for the teams that aren't in the Power Four, what are they fighting for? These teams had the best possible season that they could. And are we just going to say they can't get led into the playoffs purely because they're not in the ACC, because they're not in the SEC, because they're not in the Big Ten?
I think the argument there is that there's no question that these Big Ten, SEC, ACC schools are better. There's a reason why there was so much controversy around James Madison, and there was really no question that they were going to lose in the playoffs. It just happened. And so I think that by lowering the number of conferences, that means that a team like Tulane or James Madison likely won't have as good of a season, because the truth is, if you send one of those teams up against an SEC team, they're just going to lose. That's how it's going to work, because they're just not as good. So I think that by saying, because there are 10 conferences and because Tulane and James Madison had easier schedules, they get in. That's really difficult for the teams like the lower teams in the SEC, who will confidently beat James Madison and Tulane, but we aren't able to see that because they're stuck playing the Bamas, the Georgias, the Texases.
Yeah. I just think with the current playoff picture, like in the past with the 4-team, you would typically see there's one, maybe 2 teams that you're like, ooh, maybe they should have gotten in. This is the case. With the 12-team playoffs, you are now seeing so many teams at the very end of the season. Teams with 9 wins, teams with 8 wins even. Duke was making their case because they're like, oh, we won the ACC, we should get let in. That are begging to get let into the playoffs, and there's no clear vision on why they should get let in. And now I think it's gotten even worse, considering that Notre Dame, despite not being in a conference after all these years, has an auto get included for whatever reason, even though they decide their own schedules.
Yeah, my number one argument, I guess, to start the whole playoff argument would be Notre Dame has to go into a conference.
Yes, they should be in the ACC. They play in the ACC in every other sport except for football. They basically just play ACC teams anyway.
The real question is, does Notre Dame think it's going to lose to ACC teams?
Yes.
Are you telling me...
Guess who they're losing to, baby? Best team in the ACC. Come on. Yeah. Atlantic Coast Conference.
I was going to say, Cal's really showing up in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Love to see it. Just questionable geography throughout all the sports right now, but...
Hey, man.
My God.
Blame UCLA, blame USC.
I guess, man. I guess. Stanford's in there with y'all. So
yep.
You guys are just making the trip every week. It's fun.
Yep.
Jet lag must be crazy on those players.
It's It's been a struggle, but the team's good. Team's gonna be ready.
Yeah. Ready for the season to start.
Yeah, man.
I'm telling you, if you lower the number of conferences, these teams don't have to travel as far anymore.
If only there was a conference with all of the West Coast teams together so that the travel wasn't as bad. And you could call it the Pacific.
No
I don't
way.
know. Again, UCLA, USC's fault. It's all for the best, We're really excited to be in the ACC. We're really excited about the future, but there's something about Pac-12 after dark that was lovely growing up, but happy about the future.
I like how you say lovely growing up being from Atlanta, but
Pac-12 after dark.
When the Pac-12 was a thing, it was cool. All right, it was really cool. Now Pac-12 is just dead and it's sad. But
hey, they got some teams back.
You could bring it back. I'm just saying. Make the 5 conference playoffs, and
maybe in a really long time, but as of now we're just focused on the ACC.
Yeah, Power 4. You love to see it. All right, take us to your next.
Sorry, I started to take a sip of water. I'm gonna go on to the time of play. Now, they did a study and it found out that the average college football and the average NFL game has just 11 minutes of play. 11 minutes when in the NFL, an average game is 3 hours and 15 minutes, and the average college game is 3 hours and 30 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that we need to be really buffing up the play because that will be detrimental to players. And I think that that would be like unreasonable. I think the amount of time that they play is perfect. What I have a problem with is the sheer amount of advertisements and the amount of breaks. I think if we cut down on the advertisements and like maybe change the advertisements into different places so it's not just cut to commercial, and every NFL game feels like, oh my God, we watch a drive and then commercial, watch another drive, commercial. I think that that would actually really, really improve the product because the on the field product from the NFL and college football, in my opinion, best sport in the world. It's why I love this sport, and it's why I will sit through 3 hours and 15 minutes despite only having 11 minutes of play. It's because it's that good, and the actual analysis from the commentators is really, really good. But I think if we can manage to like cut it down from 3 hours and 15 minutes to like maybe 2 hours and you really like cement it, I think that would do so much for football. I doubt this will ever happen purely because of money, but as a viewer, it's what I'd like to see.
So let me ask you this. For college basketball, or for men's college basketball, I should say, there's a TV timeout every 4 minutes. Would you consider that too much or too little?
I really think it's too. I think it's too much. Okay. I think when you, especially at the very end of games, you'll see in like college basketball, especially men's college basketball, it's become like a joke where it's like if you get to the final minute, that is a 30 minutes of your life that you're going to spend because it's going to be single play, shot, timeout, TV break. I think that when there's a certain level where you have to pick between money from advertisements and getting viewers because the product, the on-screen product is better. And obviously, I don't work in the NFL or college football. I can't say whether or not the amount of viewers that you would get from cutting down the time or making it more focused would be beneficial, but it's just what I would personally like to see.
Yeah. So I can say that working in college basketball, we are required to hit every 4 minutes. You need to have your TV timeout. And then there's also one floater. And so the floater typically gets pushed a really long time, and that's why you have that last minute that feels like it's 30 minutes long and typically is 30 minutes long. I think the bigger problem, though, when I really think about it, is that what those TV timeouts allow a team to do is to save all their timeouts till the very end. Yeah. So, you're taking something that doesn't really need to be there. Obviously, for money purposes, it does. But in terms of the play itself, there's really no need for a TV timeout. And that just becomes a coach's timeout. Now, it benefits both teams. So you could look at it as a positive for both teams. Or you could realize that, in soccer, we've been seeing it with the World Cup. Refs are keeping players away from the sidelines during, an injury break or anything else that goes wrong. I think that's really good for the sport because it ensures, when halftime comes, when hydration breaks come, when, a player has to run and figure out what's going on, that is a tactical thing that needs to be focused on and used to its best or used to its maximum. When in sports like football and in basketball, coaches are kind of able to talk to their players whenever and change up whatever they need to change up.
Yeah.
In basketball, they get 3 minutes every 4 minutes. And in football, I believe it's 1 or 2 per quarter. So, that's just so much time for coaches to talk to their players when, people will say, let the kids play. Sometimes you just got to let them play. And if you talk to your team, make it tactical, and you get 3 timeouts per half for a reason.
Yeah, I think it's just very, there will be a tipping point because we've seen more and more ads get put in. We've seen more and more breaks get put in. Even look at the World Cup, the hydration breaks. I've been to one of the games. I went to South Africa versus Czechia. I've never heard boos that loud in my life when that first hydration break came out. People don't like it because they just want to watch the sport. They don't want to watch ads. Like the hydration break, if it was just hydration break and you just got like tactical analysis in that time period, people would be fine with it. But it's just because, oh, clearly they're doing this not for the players, it's to put more ads. And that, like, people who are watching don't want more ads. They want to watch more football, whether that is American football or European, like the rest of the world football. They want to watch the game.
Yeah, I think your point is interesting because I feel like you're arguing more for less ads rather than more playing time. I think
Hmm.
it's not really that, the clock keeps running after you get a first down that you're arguing about. It's that the clock will then stop for 3 minutes and we
Hmm.
all get to go watch ads for that
Yeah.
time, which I'm fully on board with. But do you think that that would affect the players' conditions in the sense that, you've seen football players run down the field and then need oxygen on the sidelines?
Yeah.
Do you think that by condensing the game and getting rid of those timeouts, the quality of play would go down?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't know. And maybe it would. And in that case, I would say, okay, I would rather not have this many TV timeouts and instead have like shorter, like we get analysis from the color commentators, analysis from the like professionals on like what has been happening in the game, and just increase that. I just think that the like overall, it's not even about the amount of time per se. It's more about the time of ads.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. And yeah, I think it just lowers the quality of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think, you look back at like different sports games, whether it be, baseball, football, soccer, basketball, any of them from 30 years ago, and you see people really paying attention to the game. And nowadays, everybody's looking at their phones because if you need to see
Mm-hmm.
something, you look at a replay or you wait for a break and then you go back to it. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it will really increase the experience for people.
Mm-hmm. All right. My next complaint, it's a pretty short one. It's been complained about all over the place by NFL players alike. It's just player safety. Can we get some grass? We just saw all these stadiums for the World Cup, like pretty easily, completely put grass fields. But we can't do that for the NFL?
Yeah.
We can't protect our players? Like, what is. I don't understand why we can't just, like, all the stadiums. They ran the numbers. It's not even that much money in comparison for the, like, absolute maximum safety for the players. If the NFL really wants to take player safety seriously, and if the teams want to honestly protect their money makers, which is the players, they need to be trying to protect them. And this is like one of the simplest ways to get one of the largest results, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you put it pretty perfectly. It's incredible to me that, helmets and pads have evolved so much, and yet we've decided to take all of that and throw it to the side and risk every player's legs and, ACLs, Achilles, all of it
Hmm.
because we don't want to plant grass.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a team that's trying to be competitive, I truly don't understand why you would have turf. Because you are just putting your own players in extra danger. Sorry to dog on your own team, but look at the Giants in MetLife. Dude, like how many players have you watched? Like how many stars have you watched like completely get soft tissue injuries because they played on MetLife?
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough scene, and I'm not gonna argue with it in any way. I mean, you put it perfectly. If you're gonna protect the players, protect them fully,
Yeah.
and it starts with that. It's incredible to think that 50 years ago they probably had safer playing conditions in some ways than we do now,
Hmm.
and we've enhanced every other part of the game. So now, let's remember the fact that grass keeps players safer.
Exactly. It's so simple. The players want it, the fans want it. I don't understand why the league and why the teams just won't do it.
It's also like fun to watch. You said that the fans want it,
Yes.
but like it is more fun to watch a game played on grass than it is to watch a game played on turf.
Hmm.
Just plain and
100%.
simple. And so yeah, it really does benefit everyone. And I think the price difference is slightly higher. And I think that is a
Hmm.
price difference that you should pay 1,000%.
Exactly. Like, think about it. All right, again, sorry to dog on your team, but could you imagine, is the price difference of paying for the grass field? I feel like that would get just paid off if Malik Neighbors doesn't
Malik
get
Neighbors
injured
comes
and
to
people buy his jersey more because they see Malik Neighbors, or maybe he's in more ads for you. This is like, it will
or
pay
make
for itself.
yeah, it
Yes.
it pays for itself 100%, and it's wild to me that the NFL hasn't done it.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, pretty. I think we're both in total agreement there. I
Pretty
feel like
much,
there's not
yeah.
really much of a debate. Send it over to your next one.
Literally. I think the next one that again has been debated a lot, kind of close to the conferences in NCAA, but the divisions just feel off in the NFL,
Mm.
and I think it feels off geographically. And a lot of people want to have like the Jets and the Giants, or the Raiders and the Chargers in the same place, or sorry, not Raiders and the Chargers, the Rams and the Chargers in the same place. I disagree with that. I think that keeping teams in the same cities in separate conferences is good because it allows for fans to be, or yeah, for fans to be fans of multiple teams. But that being said, there is definitely a way for the NFL to change up their divisions and allow for just better football and allow for fans to watch their teams in more situations. You look at a team like the Falcons when they're going to play, the Broncos who aren't in their division, it's not
Hmm.
as interesting for fans. So then why are we making a team like the Cardinals go play the Seahawks? You know, it's just not going to be as interesting because they're so far apart from each other. If you have Arizona playing a team in California, you're going to get a lot more fans in that area that are a lot more concentrated. And that's going to help the sport, I think.
Honestly, I kind of disagree with you here. I think overall the divisions in the NFL are probably the best of any of the divisions in like any of the sports, in my opinion. I think you look at specifically the NBA, which is another one of my favorite sports. Divisions don't matter. I watch the NBA religiously. I could not tell you what all the divisions are because they just don't matter. You don't like it doesn't affect the game. But in the NFL, like nothing matters more than beating your divisional rivals. I have gone to Falcons Saints game in Mercedes Benz every single year for the last 5 years because I want to see that team. I want to see the Saints lose so badly that I will like no matter what I will get to that game. But the thing I just think that if we start realigning divisions and we start just going off of like, okay, we need to change this so this can all be closer. We need to do. I think there's going to be some sacrifices of historical rivalries.
That's fair because in that sense, I hadn't thought about, how deep the rivalries run just in that sense. I think that the only other thing that's kind of keeping this from being more of a non-problem is the fact that games are so closely regulated for schedules in the sense that
Hmm.
all games kick off at 1 o'clock, 4:30, 8:30, whatever.
Yeah.
That's all Eastern time. Um, but yeah, I think that there's a lot where they could improve in certain areas. Like the Dolphins don't need to be playing the Bills. But that being said, the Dolphins, the Bills, or a better one would be the Bills and the Patriots, who are a little bit closer, but better for this example. Their rivalry runs so much deeper that yes, I could be convinced that it is fair to have them stay in the same division, just because that rivalry is so deep.
Yeah. And I would not be totally opposed to some realignment with some of the divisions, but I think it runs the risk too much. I just think that with modern like planes and the way that like travel works in the league, I think it's fine where it is. I don't think it's that big of an issue,
I think
personally.
one of the interesting things too is that in other sports, you were talking about basketball, how divisions don't really matter. In
Hmm.
baseball, you see a lot more rivalries with player or with teams between divisions. So, the Braves Dodgers rivalry isn't like an official thing, but it's very much there. It's very, prevalent and visible in the game now. The NFL is one of the only sports where the real rivalries are only the ones that occur in a division. You don't see
Hmm.
like the Falcons or the Giants really beefing with teams that aren't in their division.
I have
There's
beef
just
with the Patriots.
okay. You know what? 28-3 is that one's on y'all. I don't know what else to tell you. It's on y'all.
Still hate them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody can hate the Patriots just because the Patriots
I
or
can
the
hate them more.
I mean, your team blew a 25-point loss. I don't have any comeback for that.
I hate Tom Brady. He ruined
Yeah,
my
but
life.
then he came to y'all's division.
And he ruined my life again.
I know
But we
that's
beat
crazy.
him one time. We beat him one time. But we got him
That
in
must
a
have been a great
meaningless
day.
game that ruined
Yeah,
our draft
that
position.
one regular
But it
season game
mattered
that
to me.
killed y'all's draft pick.
It did. But it mattered to me.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm glad that you got at least a little bit of, of warmth after all the
Yeah.
darkness.
All right. The next one, this is a pretty short one. I really don't like the franchise tag. I think the franchise tag in the NFL is not fair to players. I think it's kind of a relic of the old era of the NFL where like teams had total power. I think it's really unfair for a player, a really talented player in a position, particularly skill positions, because that's where it gets used the most, to be almost locked down by their team for years on end purely because the franchise tag is available. For example, look at Trey Hendrickson. Just now went and signed a deal with the Ravens. He is a lucky case, but for the previous 2 seasons, he was under the franchise tag. They could have done it again. And sure, is it true that the franchise tag is a higher salary than a lot of other positions? And sometimes players who get franchise tagged would make more money than they would on a long-term contract. Sure, but it limits player freedom. It limits their ability to create a long-term contract and create stability for themselves. If a skill position player, or specifically like a running back, who typically we've seen a lot of debates on whether they should get paid more, or like whether you as a franchise should even pay a running back, can just get locked in with the franchise tag. They get injured and now they have no stability.
Yeah, the franchise tag is interesting to me just because it's so uniquely NFL.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that it can hurt teams just for that reason that players A don't really have stability and B it's a in my opinion a strange look for a team to look at one player and say you're staying with us guaranteed no questions but everybody else just kind of keep doing what you're doing. Um
Yeah.
so I think in that regard it's just a little strange to me. I don't know if I'm fully against it just because I think that a lot of these teams would be keeping these players regardless, or would do everything that they can to keep
Hmm.
these players. But I think it creates this really strange environment, and it also can cause players to feel either overvalued or undervalued because
Hmm.
you know your team is telling you you matter so much to us. Now let's put you on a 1 year contract.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
a
always
it's a weird position.
yeah. So I don't
It's
know
a,
if I'm fully for or against getting rid of it, but I do think that it's a really strange, uniquely NFL thing that's kind of unnecessary.
I just think that it's so. I'm trying to find the right words to use here. I think it's a very I just think it's like an ancient relic of what the NFL and sports used to be before like the player empowerment era like started happening. I think if you're a player and you're trying you get to your second contract and you're trying to create long-term stability for yourself and your family, because a lot of the times even with the best players you're really only going to get to that second contract. That's what
Mhm.
a lot of players like really are fighting for, because it's like when I get to this, like once I get to the second contract, then I'll be stable and I can like focus just purely on football because I know that I'm set up for the rest of my life. When you get to that second contract and boom, the team's like, "Hey, we don't want to get rid of you, but we don't trust you enough to actually pay you long term. So boom, here's this 1 year deal. You have no stability. You've no. It's going to alienate players. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense to me personally.
Yeah, yeah, it feels strange, and I think alienate is the best term for it. Just because it really singles players out, and I don't know if that's good for the sport, and I don't know if that's good for the players themselves. We talked about that Max Crosby trade a couple weeks ago, and we were saying, when he gets back to the Raiders, he knows that he's now playing for a team that didn't want him, and that's really strange. And now look at that on the flip side, when you're playing for a team that really wants you and has prioritized you over everyone else, that can also create a really strange dynamic in the locker room and just for individual players, kind of this weird power dynamic.
But it's
So,
also there's a second aspect to it too, because have they really prioritized you? Because they're not giving you a long-term deal.
yeah. So, yeah, it's a strange thing for me. The weirdest part is that like now a team like the Rams could franchise tag Myles Garrett. And
Yeah,
like what happens in that situation because this is a guy that should be picked up for a lot more money and for a very long time. And, with franchise tags, he could be living off 1 year contracts.
exactly. Anyway, just a tiny bit. In the end, we both love this sport. We love football, whether it be college
Absolutely.
football or the NFL. These are just kind of nitpicks because when you love something, you want it to be better. And
Exactly.
I think
Always.
it's fair to point it out.
Yeah, for sure.
So this has been a fun episode, a little bit less structured than we usually do. Let us know what you think about it, if you prefer this style, or if you want more structure, more stats, all of that. Thank you very much. Go watch my interview with the Men in Blazers. That was really
Is
fun to do.
fantastic, folks. I cannot advertise this enough. I can't plug it enough. It is amazing. You have to watch this interview.
Thank you. Anyway, we'll see you next time.